Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim, Bracha Kodash, the belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutation to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim to Tzadakim, that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. On the pre-Shaman, this week's topic, we're going to be discussing that China is coming to the table. China coming to the table, question mark, because we're not certain yet, but there's talks that China is coming to the negotiation table with Trump over this whole tariff ordeal. Now, months ago, in the wake of the tariff situation, I said Canada and Mexico would capitulate, just prophesying, and I said China would also capitulate. Now, Mexico and Canada capitulated far quicker, which I believe was a wiser decision. And it seems like China is now coming around. And why is that? Well, if you've been watching these lessons, I said that the United States dollar is one third of the world trade is done in United States dollars. So you lose that customer, then you're pretty much going to be feeling it far more. But whoever cares less holds the leverage, and the United States definitely does not need China more than China needs the United States, because we are the major consumer of China. There's a guy by the name of Jack Ma, right? He's the CEO of Alibaba, right? And I think there was some sort of controversy about his whereabouts. He went missing and all this type of stuff, but he said something very interesting. He said the American consumer consumes and spends before they even get the money. China, even though China has triple the population of the United States, they don't consume as much as the United States. So-called Chinese people, Moabites, they much rather save, and so yeah, that's great leverage, man. And like I said, if you have one third of the world trade is in dollars, that's the liquidity right there. People speak about, well, these other nations could ditch the United States and do bilateral trade, but the situation with that is every time let's say China goes through South America and then goes through Korea, for example, every time they exchange their currency, there's a fee for that. It gets very, very expensive, wherein if you do trade in dollars, you could go anywhere right now, because you have the world reserve, right? And never seen a president like Donald Trump that's actually using the full might of the United States leverage, right? I'm not just saying that because I'm some MAGA guy or whatever. It's just the truth. The United States is the most powerful, and this guy's leveraging the shit out of that. In fact, the word Donald means world leader, and that's gonna make these nations really think. The same way COVID so-called made the United States think, and when I say that, they're saying, at least face value, that when COVID happened. And I say face value because who knows if it's deeper than that, but on a surface level, it's pretty accurate. When COVID happened, it was a shock that holy shit, like we don't manufacture a lot of shit, like in terms of necessities. And if we face a global crisis, all right, these nations got us by the balls. So Trump has said, look, tariffs, all right, which is import taxes that companies have to pay for using manufacturers outside of the United States, all right. To circumvent those taxes, the company is going to either charge the manufacturer more. It doesn't go directly to the consumer, okay, because that import tax, the tariff is not on us. The tax is on Walmart, the tax is on Nike, the tax is on Amazon, for example. They're not going to raise the price. They're going to affect the price of the manufacturer where they're buying it from. This is how come it hurts these other countries, okay? So to circumvent that, you have two options. Either you're going to pay that tariff, or you have to put your manufacturing plant inside the United States. And that's the whole concept behind it, all right? And it's used as a negotiation tactic, and if you read President Trump's Art of the Deal or whatever in the book, the leverage is very simple. You start at a price that's extremely high, 100 and something percent, like something extremely high, and then you negotiate down. But when you negotiate down, guess what? We met where I wanted you anyways, and that's what they call so-called the Art of the Deal. Also, he mentioned in the Art of the Deal, Andrew Tate also quote this: "Don't go to a deal that you can't walk away from." So with that said, Trump was like, "Look, If we have a deal, we have a deal. If we don't, we don't. You know, we don't need you. And that's sort of how you want to approach the shit. And like I said, this stirred the pot. Most of these other presidents weren't this nationalistic, if you will. They were more like globalist, you know. And so the pot's been stirred. Let's see if China bends the knee. Was Vladimir Putin right? He said all these nations are going to kiss the ring. All right, this is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1 and 1. It says, the vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. It says, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. Who's that? So-called white man, Esau, Edom. It says, the pride of thine heart hath deceived thee. The so-called white man is extremely proud. America is extremely proud. Okay, why? They boisterous, military. We just mentioned they have the world reserve currency. A lot of things has lifted up America. The pride in America. Other nations are going to look like that. Look at it and say, wait a minute. We have to come up with something, okay? Because we can't have a situation where like sanctions could cripple us. Because that's another thing the United States can do on these other nations, sanctions. And Russia is head of an organization called BRICS. Now BRICS is you know, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Korea, and these guys want to do bilateral trade with each other. They basically want to create something called a BRICS payment system, and that's not to destroy the dollar, because these nations use dollars. India wants dollars, right? It's not to destroy the dollar. BRICS was set up to circumvent sanctions. You know, Russia alone had over 1,600 sanctions put on them. So to circumvent that, they came up with the BRICS payment system. You know, I know that they also have in works BRICS currency, but that's creating a new world reserve currency just takes decades, and you need liquidity. It's just a whole grueling process. So that's more like a display than actual practicality. The more practical thing about BRICS is the payment system they have to circumvent SWIFT and CHIPS. Okay, which SWIFT is what most nations use for international trade, and then CHIPS is the clearinghouse, which is also again governed by the U.S. So the U.S. could put heavy sanctions on you via SWIFT and heavy sanctions on you via CHIPS. Okay. It says, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, and thou art greatly despised. The pride of thy heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks. Right, and that's what these so-called white people like to dwell in. If you look at these skyscrapers and things like this is just not more than high mountains, you know? And the windows are just little holes in the walls and shit, you know? This is not the nature of our people. Our people is tent dwellers, you know? Jake like to be in a house. You know, the higher up you go in these penthouse and these different buildings, the more expensive it becomes. And the notion is, if you're above the very top, that means you're looking down on everybody. You're like an eagle, because there's nobody flying above the eagle, right? The eagle is the top predator. So that's the nature, okay, of the so-called white man. It says, the pride of thy heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Right? Who's gonna take down big bad America? Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, right? Just mentioned, that's their symbol, and not just America, the Roman Empire, fucking a lot of European nations, the so-called white man behind. It's all about that eagle, which is an unclean bird, by the way. It says, and thou art set, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. Right, so how have you set your nest upon the stars when you went out there, all right, in the 60s, all right, in the space stations, okay? But that was the beginning of your downfall, because around the 60s is when Abba Bivens came on the scene, and then this word started to spread like wildfire. 5, if thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? How are the things of Esau? searched out. So that's the scriptures letting you know that it's talking about Esau. How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy, and this is what I want to get into, all the men of thy confederacy, your joint contracts, these different nations that have alliances with you, okay, have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. And if you look, when, you know, Trump is sitting down with a lot of these prime ministers, recently he sat down with the Canadian prime ministers, he's kind of like puffing his chest out. Like, look, we don't need Canada like that and shit. He just wants to portray the image that, look, we're the big bad America. We control you. We run you and shit. And a lot of these nations are kind of just like smiling or what have you, just to community trade. But in secret, man, they're like, man, fuck this. These guys, man, who they think they are? You know, that's what's gonna happen. Okay, because these nations are gonna come together to take down America, because one nation alone can't take down America. All right. And that's another thing too. He be flexing the military, and I love all this shit, man. It's about time. You got a guy like this. Like, look, all right, if China don't want to play ball, if they would want to take it to that war level, we got shit that people can't even think of. That's what he said. He said we got some stuff that people can't even imagine. It would blow your mind away. All right, so they got shit. These other nations got shit. You know, trade wars lead to cold wars lead to hot wars. You know, so that's how shit goes. All the men of that confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread, which is to make a covenant, all right, breaking of bread. In our custom, the covenant of bread and salt, right? So when we break bread, that means we establish the covenant, and salt means that this covenant shall be preserved, because salt was used for preservation back in the ancient world. We didn't have any ice fridges and shit like that. You used salt. So when you read about the covenant of bread and salt, that's the whole meaning behind it. But it says, they that have eaten the bread, making a covenant or contract, have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. Right. This guy Trump is also talking about making Canada the 51st state. The prime minister's like, Canada's not for sale. A lot of times though, that guy's he's just shooting headlines. You know what I'm saying? He said never say never. But that would also fall in line with the whole Amero currency, where they want to have one big currency, or one big, you know, Amero for Mexico, United States, and Canada. Just make it one. But like I said, Trump likes to spit out a lot of headlines and shit. So you don't know. Some things he could be fucking around. Sometimes he could be serious. 8. Shall I not in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, German scientists, all these different scientists, and understanding out of the mouth of Esau, your secret counsels as well. 9. And thy mighty men, O Teman, again, those German scientists. German engineering is top notch, right? You know, these guys put together the atom bomb and things like that. Shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. Right. And there's going to come a point in the kingdom where he's going to be completely cut off. Okay, because the scripture says you're going to look around and say, where is he at? He's going to be burnt up, and the spirit's going to be dispersed amongst these other nations. 10. For the violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. And the so-called white man has been extremely violent against the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans for histories. All right. 11. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strength from we came out of Egypt, this has been our sworn enemy. And this is going back to the garden. I'll put enmity between thy seed and the woman's seed. All right. So it's always going to be enmity between Jacob and Esau, Cain and Abel, whatever you want to call us, the sons of God versus the sons of the wicked. That's where the Most High set it up. But our people are too blind to see it. You know, people are too blind to see it. It is what it is. You know, fuck it. 2/3 are gonna perish anyways. This thing is not formed. We're only out here for the elect. I know that pisses a lot of you Israelites off when we say that, but it is what it is. You know, you're only getting pissed off and offended because you have the 2/3. It says, in the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots onto Jerusalem, even thou was at one of them. But thou shouldest not looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger, neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction, neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. Them so-called Edomites, them so-called white people, Edomites was the one that said, race it even to the ground, meaning completely destroy it. When the Babylonians came into Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the southern kingdom, all right, and pretty much led us away captivity into Babylon. All right, the Babylonians was known. This is what the Babylonians would do in the Assyrian Empire. They would do something called, they will disperse and scatter people that revolted against them. Okay, so what they did was, if somebody that was under them was trying to revolt, they'll come, they'll take you away and put you in another land. That way you don't know the custom, you don't know the language, you guys are confused, and you guys can't come together and revolt. You know, that's how you would, you know, mitigate the situation of all these nations coming together and causing an uprising against you. So this is how come our people were scattered amongst different nations, and this is how come you have different nations in our land. All right, that goes into the woman at the well, the Samaritan, that whole history there that you can find about in Kings. Okay, so that's how come we've been scattered and mixed around. So when the Babylonians came, okay, they took us out of Jerusalem and they put us in Babylon and shit, you know what I'm saying? So they wanted Jerusalem completely destroyed, you see. But you know, that's it on that. These other nations have drunken the wine of America. They're very pissed off, okay? They're seeing this man run the world and pretty much have them by the balls. And they're gonna come together. They're gonna come together. All right. We just need we just need the Middle East to do what it do. Right. Meaning Israel escalate that third world war with Iran. That's a trigger point. Everything is gonna compound. Everything is gonna come together. All right. All these events that we see before us, all right, is building up for a future catastrophic event, which is World War III. All right. With that, I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rachak Wadash, the belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutation to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim to Sadakim that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom.